Inxile Entertainment, developers of Wasteland 2, and Techland Publishing. So Techland develop Dying Light and Dead Island. This is their first published game. And the game is Torment, Tides of Numenera? Nera? Not sure what that accent is. So this footage will just be me taking you through a side mission. So I'm not spoiling anything. So, Torment is a Kickstarter game. Torment Tides of Numenera. It's made by Inxile Entertainment, who I said made Wasteland 2. So Inxile used to be Interplay. And Interplay, along with Black Isle Studios and BioWare, made some of the best and oldest CRPGs. So they're collectively responsible for things like Baldur's Gate, Wasteland, Fallout, A Bard's Tale, things like that. So Black Isle Studios and Interplay are responsible for the first, I shouldn't say that. They're responsible for Planescape Torment. And this game is a spiritual successor to that game. So anyone who's played Planescape Torment will know that it's very heavy on story. Very, very, very heavy on story and narrative, and not so heavy on combat. Which would be different to something like Baldur's Gate or the original Fallouts or Wasteland and things like that, which are pretty heavy on combat and tactics and story. Still, I mean, they're still fairly heavy on story, but combat is almost their forefront, whereas Planescape Torment, combat was not in the forefront, story was. And so it is in Tides of Numenera. It is very, very little combat. Well, of course, there can be a lot of combat if you want there to be, but you're not really pushed to do it. You're kind of pushed to avoid it. Find ways to not have to engage in combat and, you know, use your wits or use your perception or use whatever to get out of those situations. So it's a spiritual successor to Planescape Torment, but Planescape Torment is based off Dungeons & Dragons rules, D&D rules. It's heavily adapted, but it is still based off those rules. Whereas Tides of Numenera is based off a game called Numenera, which does not use Dungeons & Dragons rules. So Dungeons & Dragons has, as you may be aware, character sheets that stipulate your character's traits, their statistics. So they have a strength stat, they have a dexterity stat, intelligence, charisma, you know, constitution, and so on. You don't really have that in this game. What you have instead are stat pools. So you can see in the bottom left corner, there's my character, and underneath them are 3 numbers, and they denote my might, my speed, and my intellect, in that order. And I use these points, so they're more points rather than a hard stat. I put these points towards saving throws or checks, usually within dialogue. So it hasn't happened yet, it'll come up in a minute in this footage, but you'll have the option to maybe persuade somebody in conversation to see things your way, or try to lie to them, or try to use some speed stats, so like quick fingers. You try to steal something off them without them noticing, you know, or you try to whisper to one of your party members without them seeing you, or might, you just try to punch them really hard in the face and see what happens. But you use those points to put towards those actions. So you'll start with a base attempt. So my character is spec'd for intellect based things. So if I'm trying to persuade or deceive or bluff or anything like that, anything that's kind of diplomatic or anything that's just my words, my silver tongue, my character will be good at those things. So I'll start with, we'll say, a 45% chance that I could persuade somebody to do something for me. And then I can add points, so that would be an intellect based thing, so I could add intellect points to that check. And every point I add will add an extra 15%. And then I have a maximum number of points I can add, so I mightn't be able to get all the way to 100%. But if I was spec'd better for it, maybe I could. So for something like speed, which I'm not spec'd for at all, really, I'd be terrible at it. So trying to do anything speed-based would be a bad move on my part. So what we're doing here in the footage is we are attempting to save somebody who's about to be executed, and they're getting a particularly weird type of execution. So I should probably state that the Numenera game that this is based off, it's a tabletop game, is set 1 billion years in our future. So we're talking, you know, so far ahead that technology is magic, and any events that are happening in our present time are like just completely irrelevant. So it's like super duper future. So this execution, the man is who we're trying to save. He's being forced into a kind of waking nightmare, and he's saying what he's seeing, and whatever he says is coming out in this kind of pool of like tissue and sinew around his body, and it's wrapping around his body, and eventually when he talks himself out, he'll suffocate and die. And when that happens, this guy called the Devourer of Souls, who's not the big bad enemy, he's just some dude who has a title, the Devourer of Souls, is a cannibal, will eat him, and he will know... Sorry, it's not the Devourer of Souls, it's the Devourer of Sins, that makes more sense. He'll eat him, and he will know all of his sins, and he'll be able to say, you know, whatever about the guy, whether he should have been executed or not. So what we're doing is, we are going to try and stop that happening. And we're doing it the sneaky way. And the sneaky way is, we're going over to this merchant where we're at the moment, and we're going to buy a badge of the city, which states that we're like a clerk or whatever. And we're not, obviously, so... and I've opened his shop here to see if I can just straight buy it, but I can't. Because you have to buy it through dialogue, and I didn't know that at the time, so... Hopefully we'll get out of this in a minute. I'm obviously talking about this after I've recorded the dialogue, so... Okay, so here's the kind of... this is the journal menu. You can go back to that if you want, and look on the left and you'll see all the stats and stuff. Anyway, we're going to talk to this merchant again. Alright, what do you sell here? So this will be fairly typical. You'll walk up to somebody, got a bit of dialogue into them. He's telling us now that he's talking about the badges. So we need to find a way to get a badge off him. Now see, quick fingers there. Wait until he's not looking and then try to steal it. I would not be very good at that. So I'm going to try and avoid doing that. I'm going to see if I can just buy it off him. And he doesn't want me to, because I'm not actually a member of the city council or whatever, and I have to maybe prove it. So this is Tiber. Tiber's a character we picked up during this mission, and it's his friend who's being executed, so he wants us to help. Okay, deception. Yeah, so I think I go for the deception one here. So this is me trying to kind of bluff my way past it. Okay, so here's what I was saying. So I have a 50% chance right off of being able to deceive him, and I can put 2 points towards it, up to 90%. I can also use other characters, other party members, to try and push it. So Tiber is better at this than me. A little bit. So he can get 100%, so there's no way he's going to fail that. So why not just use him? So we've managed to bluff our way. So we'll get the badge now. So you noticed there was a dominant tides shifted message came up there. So the tides of Numenera are kind of like a morality system that you would see in a lot of the BioWare games, or in Fallout, but they're not as binary. They're a little bit more like Dungeons and Dragons, but not quite so logical. So Dungeons and Dragons has like a chaotic, lawful, and neutral kind of thing. Whereas Tides of Numenera has something a little bit different. So it's got 5 different tides. It's got blue, red, indigo, silver, and gold. I'm not entirely sure what they all are, because I haven't seen all of them yet. But I know there are 5 of them. So the blue one, which is the one I tend to get the most, is for kind of like curiosity. So you're looking for like enlightenment or mysticism or things like that. You're curious. you ask a lot of questions, and in games like this, you're kind of going to be asking a lot of questions anyway. And gold, I think, is charity. I'm not sure. You might need to look these up. I may be wrong. I think it's charity based, so when I help people out, I get a lot of gold tides. And silver is fame. Red is kind of living in the moment kind of thing. It's like a passion thing. And I think indigo is some kind of combination of red and blue. I think it's... Oh, maybe it's not. I think indigo is like being pragmatic, like being logical. I don't know. I'm not sure. But anyway, there's a lot of different ones. And the more of them you use, the more one of the tides will dominate the rest. So blue dominates mine at the moment. I'm not sure what that means. I think I know. I've seen kind of later on that you can use them to influence more in the dialogue tree. So if you have a lot of blue, you can use a lot of blue options or something like that. But it builds your character. So if you play to your character, you know, kind of correctly, you play the way you want to play it. So if you're going to be a character who's going to be very curious, then you're obviously going to build up a lot of blue dominance. So that will play into your dialogue options or your actions. So I haven't talked about combat really. Combat is in the game. So if all else fails, fight. The reason I haven't brought it up because it's not good. In my opinion, it's really, really slow. And I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to be doing when I'm fighting. It does follow the old turn-based approach, so none of it is real time. Everyone takes their go all at once. You do control all your party members, so that's good. But it's like really it's very slow. It's pretty heavy on tactical. You have one action and one move per round, and an action can be a move, so you could have 2 moves per round. But it's just too random because it's using like pseudo dice rolls in the background in the game logic, and I never like that because it's just random. It's not based on skill, and it kind of annoys me, even though I do like these kind of games. But in a lot of games you can kind of get around it because the combat system is built with the idea that it will be the primary interaction of the game, whereas the primary interaction of this game is this kind of stuff, which is fairly basic. And because it's fairly basic, it does need to make up for that, and it makes up for that with the story. So the story is you are the last cast off of the Changing God. So what that means, okay. So the Changing God is a human who has found a way to cheat death by jumping bodies. Every time he jumps body, he creates a cast off. So a cast off uses the now empty body, and consciousness is born inside the empty body. So I used to be the Changing God at one time until he jumped out. And now I'm this guy. I'm some guy, don't know who I am, really. I'm kind of new. And I'm making my way in the world, meeting other cast-offs who also used to be the Changing God. So we all used to be the same person, kind of thing. And we all have something in common. And we've all been affected by him, or we've affected each other. So if you play Planescape Torment, it does have the same kind of idea. You're an immortal who's kind of forgotten everything he's done, and he needs to remember. And Tides of Numenera has a similar idea, except you're not the immortal this time. You're a new immortal thing. I'm not doing this story justice. It's very good. The interactions are probably the best part. How you interact with the other cast-offs, the older cast-offs who all have powers, and you don't know your power yet. I presume I learned my power and it has something to do with the tides, but I don't know that. Anyway, we've gotten our badge now, and we've gotten some paperwork to say that this guy is wrongfully accused, so we can free him. We've forged a stay of execution. So anyway, if you're looking for a game that has a lot of spectacle and, you know, particle effects and explosions and things like that, it's not the game for you. If you're looking for a game that has a really deep story that you really have to work for, because it's all text-based, there's very little voice acting, it's not really explained to you, you gotta work for it. Play this, because I'm enjoying it. I've put about 10 hours into it now. I've heard it's not as CRPGs goes, is not that long. It's maybe about 25, 30 hours. Probably because it's so story heavy and not combat heavy. So here's your man. Spewing out his weird skin tendrils or whatever, but we freed him, so he's good now. Anyway, Tides of Numenera is on PS4 and PC. If you can get on PC, play it on PC, because there are quite a few issues on the PS4. There are some performance issues. It's based off the Pillars of Eternity engine, so if Pillars of Eternity runs fine for you on your PC, this will probably run fine too. Anyway, really, really good story, not so great combat. Check it out.